My name is Mike Clayton, and today we're going to discuss the advantages of becoming a Computrols distribution partner.
So as a quick overview, today we're going to give you a quick history about Computrols, who we are, how we came to be. We'll give you a brief overview of our hardware lineup and product lineup. We'll give you a quick demonstration of the CBAS software. We'll talk briefly about how one gets started as a distribution partner, as well as who makes a good distribution partner for Computrols. And then lastly, we'll take some questions at the end of the presentation. So Computrols. Computrols has been around over 40 years. Our founder, Roy Lynch and Kevin Lynch, started servicing third-party BAS systems and quickly identified some opportunities to improve building owner and operator experiences. After dealing with frustrations like being locked out, service calls for minor changes, they said, look, we can go about business and do things a different way. They brought on another partner, Mike Donlin, who developed the first iteration of CBAS, which was DOS-based. The idea being that we can communicate with third-party systems and teach them new things by adding capabilities on top of that. The next issue that we ran into was the availability of hardware. Forced obsolescence and product churn, which is where mismatches are created, where software no longer supports old hardware or vice versa. Roy and Kevin and Mike decided they wanted to go against that. They decided to go into manufacturing, make our own line of VAVs and DDC controllers, and then since then have provided the industry's only lifetime warranty on everything we make. So this mission statement that you see really kind of sums it up. We design and manufacture state-of-the-art BAS systems to provide the customers and partners with an intuitive, easy-to-use interface and flexible software and hardware. One of our cornerstone beliefs is empowering the end user. We want them to be able to manage their facility without being forced into a maintenance agreement, without being held hostage, and constantly being forced to upgrade either software or hardware. So empower the users, how do we actually accomplish this? Number one, offer that industry's only lifetime warranty. Number two, make an open and easy to use software platform. We want our customers to have the same level of access as our technicians do when it comes to the software and programming capabilities. We often also maintain focus on the user experience, meaning it's easy to make a product, but it's hard to make a product easy, to go that extra mile and make sure that it's easy to use for operators. We have several unique integration solutions. We also offer free technical support. There's a 24/7 emergency response line if you have any issues with something critical after hours. And then there's also a plethora of training opportunities, both here at our corporate headquarters in New Orleans or remote at your facility. So how does Computrols go to market? Computrols goes to market in three primary ways. We have branches located across the country, deep south, Southern California, up in Washington, D.C. We also have a strong network of distribution partners across the U.S. and international. And then the third way would be direct to customer. We do have some customers that are what we call self-performers. They simply purchase the product from us and then maintain it themselves in terms of install and support. So what are some advantages of being a distribution partner for Computrols? One very notable advantage in today's environment is product availability. We strive for and achieve same-day shipping on virtually every order, and that's no small feat in today's product chain, headwinds that I'm sure you're aware of from watching the news and probably deal with in your day-to-day operations. As I mentioned, on-site and ongoing training, so there's numerous opportunities and it's very flexible. Again, we try to make the product easy to where you don't need extensive training to be up and running with it, but there are a multitude and varied levels available to you. Free tech support, that's also a big one. You can pick up the phone, call if you want somebody to check programming or operations of something you're working on. You have that backup from the factory level. There's no minimum order quantities. You want a single VAV controller all the way up to full stack for a campus, hundreds and hundreds of controllers. We can cover you anywhere in between. There's no franchise fees or ongoing fees or anything like that to be a distribution partner for Computrols. It's pretty straightforward programming. We also offer extensive sales and marketing support. Inbound leads that come to us from your service area get routed to you, and our team will work with you on coordinated efforts, including reviewing your website, lunch and learns, co-exhibiting at trade shows, et cetera, et cetera. Some other notables are flexible territories. We don't arbitrarily draw lines on a map and say you're on this side of the line, they're on that side of the line. Business is more organic, and we understand that. In some areas, we have partners that are adjacent to one another, but one might focus in new construction, the other does all retrofit. We won't compete with our partners. That's expressly spelled out in our partner agreement verbiage, but we're not going to create a cheaper alternative and come compete against you. We're not going to solicit your customers or anything like that. And again, we're offering a premium user-friendly system with a lifetime warranty, easy-to-use user interface, unique integration capabilities to third-party protocols like Siemens, Johnson Controls, CSI iNet, etc. And then a simple architecture and licensing structure. It's not per point. It's not anything that's convoluted. It's very easy to understand what your costs are going to be, and it's very easy to design our system for your customer or project. So what does our core technology look like? You're looking at it here. The LX is our flagship DDC controller, and it comes in 4 sizes. The number here refers to the number of I/Os, 64, 32, 16, and 8. That's universal I/O. Every point can be an analog input or output, digital input or output. So it's very easy to apply our product to your project. Simply determine the number of I/O points you need, and then size the controller accordingly. The VAV solutions on the right are also offered with integration in mind. The Uni-C is our fully programmable universal VAV controller. You have direct control over the inputs, outputs, can accomplish any sequence of operation that you wish. Those controllers also have Wi-Fi capabilities built on board. The VAV-B comes in at a slightly lower price point. It's what we call application specific, meaning it's hard-coded for VAV functionality and fan coil functionality. But one advantage of that is because it's a little simpler in terms of programming, it's also available with a variety of third-party protocols. Siemens FLN, Computrols, BACnet, Johnson Controls N2. What that means is when you do an integration and you use our product, you'll be able to change VAV controllers from that third-party manufacturer as they fail one at a time. You don't have to completely retrofit or gut the floor to switch from the old technology to the new. So it's very attractive to owners, very comforting when they can transition to our hardware that has that lifetime warranty. Let's take a closer look at the LX. This is the 16-point model here. One notable at the top, you can see there's 2 RS-485 ports, and this is how we communicate via twisted pair daisy chain to third-party protocols. And that list on the left kind of indicates that there. Those are independent, so any port on any LX can accommodate any protocol. So you have the ultimate in flexibility and expandability going forward. As I mentioned, the 4-in-1 points are these are software selectable. So when you do program a point in our system, you don't have to go move jump switches, dip switches, or jumpers or anything like that in the field. Very simple. All the boards are BTL listed, and again feature our lifetime warranty. So we talked about forced obsolescence and product churn, right? Things becoming obsolete, and how do you address that? So one of the cornerstones that Roy and Kevin had the vision for was let's design products that sit on the same platform. If you notice, the terminations are made on a backplane, and the electronics are in the form of a card that snaps in and out. So this gives you 2 primary benefits. The first is serviceability. You don't need any tools or any special programming to swap out a controller and troubleshoot it. Drop in the new one, change its address, the software automatically downloads to it. But it also shows our commitment to backwards compatibility, because that board on the far left is our 32X. This board was released in the year 2000, so it's going on 22 years old. Many, many thousands of these installed out in the wild. But if your customer or you had made that investment with us 2 decades ago and now wants to upgrade the latest and greatest technology, it's simply a matter of unplugging that old card and plugging in a new one. There's no tools or anything else needed. And also, the board on the right can function at sites that have the old controller and old software. It's true forwards and backwards compatibility at both the software level and the hardware level. So network architecture. We use TCP/IP protocol. This is Ethernet, Blue Cable, Cat5, so we can leverage the existing building network or provide your own if needed. But there's not a lot of gateways or little black boxes or pieces, parts, things like that. Third-party protocol integration, when we do integrate to protocols like Siemens or Johnson Controls, those control points all live on this controller. So it acts as a host for those protocols. It's not living in a PC somewhere. TLS secure communication is available, same thing you use when you connect to your bank, etc. So very secure. Easily scalable. We make one software package that's your everything tool. Whether you have one controller or thousands in a database, it's the same software, same platform. So it'll easily scale from job to job. You can add workstations to that, other copies of the software, everyone sharing that experience at the same time. And there's also a product called CBAS Web, which is an appliance that gives web functionality to a system without necessarily requiring internet. So customers that have security concerns can keep that web benefit, but keep it locked in on their network. And the primary focus for that product is obviously driving the system from a web browser, but also web-based tenant overtime requests for commercial properties. And again, that web product, tenant overtime, gives you energy dashboards, and then any graphics you program in our CVAS software can automatically be imported with just a few clicks. So a nice little plug-in, but again, optional for those customers that have concerns. They may not want to have a web-based system. They can choose to keep it isolated like that. So as hardware designers, we can create products that meet specific challenges we come across in the field. For example, here's our serial connector. We were observing that various Siemens systems were having 3 RS-45 channels as a common topology in their panels. So instead of taking 2 LXs to accomplish this, we created the serial connector. We removed all the inputs and outputs from an LX, added the third RS-45 channel, and then shrunk it down into a 4-square box. That's very easy for installation and retrofit type work when you're doing protocols. So this has been a very popular product. It's doing quite well for us. And again, leveraging our hardware design capabilities and our knowledge of what we're experiencing in the field when it comes to integrations, and giving you a product to make those projects go off a lot smoother for you. So let's recap what an existing BAS looks like. You have a front-end PC, Cat5, Ethernet to a parent controller. If you're familiar with Johnson Controls, it might be an NAE or BCU, those sort of topologies. Then you have from there twisted pair, RS-45 that goes out to the floor. When we integrate, one of the things we can do is replace that front end, get rid of that old existing software, migrate to ours. We can often integrate to those parent controllers or possibly replace them depending on the needs of the site. From there, what do we do when things fail? Well, we can replace it with our controller either in line with the VAVB using one of those supported protocols, or perhaps with the Uni connecting back to the front-end PC over Wi-Fi. So there's no magic bullet for each building. Every challenge is unique, and the takeaway is that Computrols has a flexible enough approach that we can meet those needs, and it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach. In existing to HVAC, which is our core lineup and technology, we do have card access control. CVAS Live is a platform that's just coming out of beta to give you kind of a larger scale view of multitude of properties, real attractive to people like property managers where they're dealing with several facilities. There's also a portfolio of wireless products, room sensors, and devices that are just coming out of beta as well. Expect to see a lot of that coming out in the market on 2023. So integration, touched on this. This is a core competency for us. We do this every day. This is a listing of some of the more popular protocols we do. But one thing that's important to note, it's one thing to be able to communicate to a Siemens FLN device or a CSI DCU device. It's another thing to build in a tool set to the platform that allows you to integrate quickly. What I mean by that, let's go into the Siemens Insight software and run a report and import that into my software, CVAS, so I can pull in thousands of points with just a few mouse clicks, or pull in the CSI SAV files, or HVAC profiles from Johnson. So whenever there's data that exists that I can pull into my system, we're going to do that. That means that instead of you or your technician spending, hundreds of man hours doing manual data entry for a site, you can leverage those imports and pull those points in quite quickly. So now I'd like to switch over and show you a quick rundown of our CBAS software. As I mentioned, this is our everything tool. This is sold outright to you. There's no subscription, there's no ongoing maintenance fees, anything like that. It's sold outright with the customer and you as the installer having every right that we do as the factory. I don't make a factory service tool. I don't deny access to everything. A common question we're asked is, what software do I need to work on a Computrols system? You don't need anything extra. It's already at the site. Every capability is built into it. Depending on your background, you're probably used to driving one of three types of interfaces. Maybe a graphical based only, maybe a text based system, or maybe a tree based system where you have the pluses and minuses. We've been writing software, as I said, for 40 years, and we've been doing this with back to the DOS days. We've given you all three of those same views simultaneously because our view is you should decide what your best and favorite method of interacting with the system is. So we'll start with graphics. This is typically the most popular. And we'll pick a building, and then we'll come to a system like the chill water system. And what you're noticing here, these are links placed on top of a background image. When I press Control E, I'm now in the graphics programming mode. If I hit Insert, I can add objects, links, animations, etc. So once I have that background image, which is a straight generic JPEG, I can add these objects on the fly. So the editor is built into the product. Very easy to add links, objects, etc. from there. If I click on a point, stop, start, auto, pretty explanatory. These are operator commands. This is the release. When I click program, the idea behind this screen is to give you everything you might ever want to do at this point at one central location. You don't have to come to school for 6 months to become certified to do things like set an alarm on a point. It's pretty basic stuff. Fill in the blank. Alarm when the status is stopped without interruption for 30 seconds. Well, how do I prevent false alarms? Well, we use things like lockouts. If the chiller's off, lock out that alarm. I don't want to see it. And only enable it after the chiller's been running for 2 minutes. I can pick email recipients, etc. So as you can see, it's fill in the blank, easy to use stuff. It's not hard to get up to speed very quickly with the product. One other very notable thing that we do, let's click on this temperature point. We want to pull some history for it. We trend every single point regardless of protocol from the moment it's in our database. Whether it's Siemens, Johnson Controls, BACnet, Modbus, Computrols, if it's a point in our database, we save trend data for it automatically. And this can become a very valuable troubleshooting tool. So let's pick starting and ending date. Let's go back in time a little bit. We're going to go back to January, but not just 2022. We're going to go back a couple years. We're going to go back to January of 2018. And we are going to say, you know what, let's look at this data for the month of January, the 1st through the 31st, 2018. Watch when I hit Generate Graph now, how quickly I'm able to go back multiple years and give you a month's worth of data. If I want to start adding objects to this, I can simply come back up one step, select more points, and start to overlay things. So it becomes a valuable troubleshooting tool, right? I can see the call for compressor stage 1 and not a corresponding drop in supply temp. So now I know I've got a dead circuit. I can start to do some basic troubleshooting with this. Also, while I'm here, I can draw boxes around things and zoom in from that 10,000 foot view down to a lower level, etc. But the takeaway is that this is a valuable add-on when we're talking about things like integrations. To be able to deliver that to your customer, it's very attractive to them and often something they can't do with their existing system. So let's switch over to the text view. This is a data dense view. We're just putting as much data on the screen as you want, sorting and filtering this however you prefer. Let's click on this start stop. This looks familiar, and that's familiar, right? Because it's the same point. Just instead of using a graphical link, we're using a text-based link, but the same point interaction is done here. Now let's do some basic troubleshooting, right? We got a call, this wasn't working. So if I hit the hardware button, this shows me that it's in this panel. It's over in the plant. It's point number 41 is the name of the point. So I can send my greenhorn over to the plant with a fluke meter and say, put your probes on point 41 and tell me if you're seeing 24 volts DC. So this is what a point looks like on a Computrols controller. If I come over to, let's say, this gas flow point, this is what a point looks like on a BACnet device, or Modbus, or Siemens, or Johnson Controls. So the takeaway is this. A point is a point in our system. It's standardized. It doesn't matter what that third-party protocol is. It's very easy to standardize these things for that customer. And to them, it's completely invisible to them that we're moving the ones and zeros around between these different protocols. They just simply write the equation, drive the building the way they want. They never even know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different protocols under the hood. Lastly is the hardware tree view. This is as I described in Vision. If I click a plus and expand out the list of controllers, if I come to this controller and expand out his list of points, this is a list of points as they're terminated in the field, 1 through 32. If I click on this point, this looks familiar, that looks familiar, because again, it's the same screen. You're just using the third different direction to get here. What I'd like to do now is program a little quick point on here just to show you how easy that is. This will take just a second. Let's say you have an exhaust fan and a temperature sensor you want to use to control it. How do we get that programmed into my system? Well, I click on any open point in the system and simply say, I want, in this case, this to be a relay. So that's a binary output, start, stop. Next I want to add is the temp sensor. The system remembers I'm working with the EF, so I can just simply add on to that. There's my temp sensor, which is a degree Fahrenheit input. It's automatically scaled for a 10K type 3. And then lastly, I'm going to come down and add a software point, a virtual point. We're going to call this EF temp set point. And that is also an analog output set point. So now let's talk about programming. What does it look like in Computrols? We're going to add some logic, and if we talk about how to sequence this, you're going to say things like, well, if the temperature is greater than the set point, let's turn it on. Pretty basic stuff. We program that the same way we just spoke about it. If the temp sensor is greater than another point's value, the set point, and I could get fancy and say 4x amount of minutes, etc., but I'm just going to say if it's greater than the set point, then start the exhaust fan start stop. Otherwise, else, stop. And before I pick this, note a couple things. One, you're seeing point names, right? You're not building an equation or defining an equation. We're working with the actual point names. Number two is that you're actually, it doesn't matter whether this point's on a Computrols controller or Siemens or Johnson controls. Your logic and calculations, everything's seamless. Number three, when I say I want to start or stop something, the system only shows me potentially valid choices. So it's not going to show me a temp sensor because I can't start or stop that. So it helps you guide you to the right decision. And the takeaway that's important is this. When we're done, we programmed it, you programmed it, this is what your customer's left with. A plain English, easy to understand logic statement. Now obviously they get more complicated than this, but this isn't code in a black box buried on a wall, and no one has a special cable, no one has the special password, no one has the special tool needed to get in there and see what's going on. This is all being presented front and center, and it really helps define and set you apart from your competition in the BAS space. A couple other notables, things like backing up the database. It's a one-click process. Every line of logic, every schedule, every alarm parameter, everything unique in the database is in this one file. It can be automated on a schedule. It can also be uploaded automatically to the cloud at no charge. Another notable, extensive reporting suite shown here. All of the reports can be easily exported. You can get the raw data out, CSV, anything like that. So you have access to the data. Nothing's being, locked away for you here. So let's talk about some success stories. Quick case study here over in Southern California. You've heard these problems before probably. Pair of buildings, they're paying a maintenance agreement to Siemens. They're not getting value from that in their mind. The building isn't performing well. It's wasteful from an energy perspective. Tenants are unhappy. They're stuck in this cycle. They bring other people in to discuss alternatives. Those typically include rip and replace, which is cost prohibitive, not something they want to do. What can Computrols offer, the product here? First thing is we provide an integration. We remove that Siemens software from the site and cancel that maintenance agreement with Siemens. Next thing we can do in this case was replace the parent level controllers, get rid of those on the plant and the air handlers, recommission, resequence them from scratch. Next, we'll integrate to the floor controllers for now. So we're not climbing over people's desks at this point trying to swap out VAV controllers. We're simply going to integrate to them. And if they fail, drop one of ours in its place. And otherwise, we'll wait till a tenant improvement project happens or something like that, then we'll cut the floor over. But at the end of the day, the site has moved on from Siemens. They've transitioned to Computrols in a controlled manner, and now they have lifetime warranty products in their building. Gave this building, new life. 3-month turn on their investment, which is unheard of. Virtually got the hot and cold calls eliminated and got rid of Siemens out of the building, and more importantly, that maintenance agreement that they were forced to pay. So who makes a good partner for Computrols? Here's a couple of observations we've had just from our years of doing this. Number one is somebody fanatical about customer satisfaction, right? You're engaged with your customer. You go that extra mile. At the end of the day, what your customer thinks about you and your ability to service them is very important to you. Number two, a heavy service component. The product that I just described, doesn't really translate well to the plan and spec market where it's a race to the bottom dollar. We're delivering value in the form of ease of use, lifetime warranty, free technical support. These things translate well to the owner, not necessarily to a bid form. So again, the negotiated work is a key part of this, right? Retrofit, negotiated, name your price. Another one is willing to empower your customers. If you believe in locking down your customer and they call you for every little change, there's other products that are probably a better fit. It's a leap of faith for you to put this in front of your customer and encourage them to do whatever it is they want with their system. The realities are that they don't typically have the bandwidth to do this, but they certainly will appreciate you set yourself apart from the competition by doing business a different way. And lastly, deliver value over low-cost solution, right? Again, there's plenty of low-cost alternatives out there that'll move a valve and read the temperature and sequence equipment just fine. But if your customer is invested in that building and the long-term prognosis of it, that's where we feel we deliver a lot of value. So what does it look like to get started with Computrols? What we have is an initial buy-in. It's a bundle of hardware and software, and this gets you started with the product. It includes training, software licensing, product inventory, and again, gets you up and running with the product. There's no ongoing quota. It's a soft benchmark, we call it, and that's simply remain in good standing. You're going to make an investment in our product. You're going to try to find opportunities locally. We are going to invest our time in ensuring you're successful with that. The benchmark is there just to ensure that, look, we're both doing our jobs in terms of trying to support this partnership and generate a mutually beneficial agreement between our companies. There's sales support. As you look at projects, you may not be comfortable with Siemens integrations yet, but you have lots of opportunities that are presenting themselves. We'll help fill that knowledge gap and get you up and running with that product. The implementation support can be many different forms, but we'll help review your quotes. We'll help review your engineering. We can help provide technician labor on a quote basis if you need. We can provide turnkey programming of databases if you're short on labor or just overloaded with projects. So a lot of support available to you in many forms and shapes and sizes. So that kind of wraps things up for us, guys. I hope that kind of shed some light on the distribution partner program, who we are at Computrols, and who makes a good partner for us. And otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and thank you for your time.